How Michael made over $73,000 his first 3 months in wholesaling real estate. What is up, guys? Zach Ginn here, and I am in the Bags to Riches podcast, and I'm excited to talk to Michael about how in January till April, he made over $73,000 in assignment fees, and exactly how you can do the same exact thing. So, Michael, thanks for hopping on. I'm super excited today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. So let's get straight into it. 73 grand, basically the first quarter of the year. How do you get in this business? What happened? Tell me your story.
Yeah. So I first heard of wholesaling in 2020, actually. Thought about doing it, watched a ton of videos. I think that's around when I stumbled upon you and your dad and this channel, maybe a little bit after that. But I never actually pursued it. It was always something kind of in the back of my mind. And then this past December of 2022, I had some things happen and kind of sat down and looked at my goals for my life and decided to actually give it a shot. So I jumped right in. I went through your course, the free wholesaling course, spent all of December doing that, and then hopped in January 3rd, made my first cold call. And then 30 days after that, I got my first check, which was pretty cool.
How much was that check?
20, I think it's actually, I don't know if you can see it. It's behind. I have it hung up. It's 24,126, something like that.
Woo! All right. Well, tell me about that deal. First of all, what market are you in?
I'm in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. And how old are you?
23.
23, same age as me. Rhode Island. A lot of people think Rhode Island, you can't wholesale there, right? It's a weird market, right? And you got your first deal, 24 grand. So let's go through that. You went to freewholesaling.com. You started cold calling. What list were you cold calling? Did you get a deal from that list? Like what? Give me the whole steps.
Yeah. So for that first one, it was a vacant deal, or a vacant list rather.
Okay.
And yeah, I went on batch leads, pulled the vacant lists, or vacant properties in Providence County here in Rhode Island, and then just cold called them. Used the batch dialer, called through. I'd call at night and then in the morning, just when I had the time to actually do it. And I think it was within the first 2 weeks of calling, I scheduled up the appointment, went to the house, met the guy. It was a vacant property. He had bought it before COVID to try to fix and flip it, and then actually kind of ran out of money. So it was a stall, halfway done renovation, basically. So I went through, took some pictures, built some rapport with them, and then negotiated him to a really good price, and then ended up selling that deal.
Well, how did you? All right, so you negotiate the price of all these things. Was it in person? Like, what? Give me a little bit more story on this one, because so many people starting out, they need to know.
Yeah. So yeah, I met him in person. It was like 15 minutes from where I live, so I went to the house, met him in person. I was pretty nervous to do that. I'll be honest. That was it was the first appointment I ever went on for obviously real estate. Didn't really know what I was talking about, just from what I knew from watching your videos and some other things online. But yeah, I went in, met him. I actually didn't do any negotiating there. So I kind of both the deals I've done, I do a little bit differently than probably most people. I go in and I try to take pictures. Obviously, I ask them if I can take pictures. But I go and I just build rapport, walk through the house, try to pull out the why they want to sell, more things about the condition, just all the little things that I would need to know to try to make it a deal. And then I just tell them, hey, listen, I gotta, look at this, talk to my partner, and I'll give you a call within a few hours and make you an offer. And then I always try to ask, what do you think this is worth? Both my deals did not tell me. They basically told me, you make me the offer first. So I had to deal with that. But yeah, I called him, went through the house, took me like 30 minutes, went home, looked at all the pictures, ran the numbers really quick and, decided on an offer I wanted to give, called him, gave him the offer. I really lowballed him. I offered him like 150. And he said, it can't come down that low, but he'd meet me at 190, which based on the numbers, I knew that was a deal. And could I have negotiated him down a little more? Maybe, but I was pretty excited. So I said, all right, well, let me talk to my partner. I'll call you right back. And then I just celebrated, 5 minutes later, called him back, and that was it. So
Awesome. What was what was that pitch on that offer? Because I bet you were kind of nervous.
I
Did
was.
you
So
use kind of your own pitch? Did you use a freelosing.com one? Like what was the one that you used?
yeah. So I actually wrote down. I went on a Google Doc and basically wrote down everything I was going to say, and I do that now with all the offers I make, which I think part of is why I like to do it the way I do, where I actually call them back later,
Mm.
Because it gives me more time to look at everything we talked about in the appointment, everything I saw, and you know what I'm going to say, right? So yeah, I actually wrote out a script. I used a lot of what I learned from watching your videos and implemented some of my own stuff, and yeah, it worked. But yeah, I just kind of talked about some of the issues with the house, some of the things that I was a little nervous of. Um, but I also made sure to tell him, like, listen, I think this house has potential. I didn't totally bash the house, come off rude or anything, but I let him know here, there's some of the things I'm a little worried about. And my partner's worried about. I always kind of try to make my, the partner, the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with the numbers. Listen, my partner said 150. It's not me. I'm just, don't shoot the messenger. So that helps a lot with the lowballing. But yeah,
That's a good tactic. I tell everyone to do it. And you're probably super nervous there. Like, is there anything you did to kind of calm your nerves or make it any easier than the average person?
I don't know. I mean, drank water, drank a lot of water. Just I listened to music. I kind of just went into it saying, it's whatever. Worst case, I don't get anything out of this. It's just experience, and at the end of the day, it'll be a learning experience. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And then what was the dispositions process like on this? So how did you find this cash buyer?
Yeah, so I had nothing set up for cash buyers, and that was the part I was really nervous about.
Mm.
And what I did personally, I went on Zillow in my market, and I looked at all the fix and flip, or what looked like fix and flip properties that
Mm.
had sold um, within the last 12 months. Clearly renovated,
Yeah.
and I just cold called the realtors and said, "Hey, would that investor be looking to buy another property, have one down the street, or do you have anybody else?" And I found one that way within like 4 days.
Wow. Hey, it works out. And so did you ask them any questions? Do you vet them to get proof of funds? What was that process, making sure it wasn't like a fake cash buyer?
Yeah, yeah. So I vetted the. So I actually dealt with the realtor. There was a good guy named Doug. He found me the buyer for the last deal I just did.
Oh, wow.
I've worked with him twice now, and yeah, I vetted the cash buyer. He sent me over his credentials. I could see he had listed a bunch of renovated properties, and
Nice.
could see he was legit. Worked with investors, so yeah, I was lucky to find him, and yeah, we've done 2 deals together now. So
Awesome. So how did you set up that walkthrough? Because I think that's a problem a lot of newer wholesalers have.
mhm.
How did you set up with the cash buyer and Doug? And how did you set it up with the seller there?
Yeah, so the first one was a little bit easier than the second. So the first was a vacant property. The guy actually let me put a lockbox on it, so that made it super easy. He just had me text him whenever I went, so he could shut the alarm off, and that was it. So I just set up the appointment with the cash buyer, walked through, showed him the property. With the second deal, it was a little more difficult, because the seller was a little wary. I would say a little more wary and just overly cautious, kind of. So I was nervous about that part, but I went through again the same realtor. He found me another cash buyer that was interested in this type of property, which was a multifamily, and I just I let the. I think this is probably a good piece of advice, because this is what really helped me with both scenarios. When I was doing the negotiating, and before I even sent over the agreement, once we agreed on a price, I let the seller know, hey, I'm probably also going to have my partner, or a couple of my partners, walk through the house within the next week or two. Just want to make sure that's okay with you, and they're always like fine with it. So That's what I would say helped me the most, especially with the second scenario, is I had already prepped the seller that I was gonna have my partner come through. Um, so when I texted him, a couple days later, and said, "Hey, what day works for me to bring my partner through the house who wants to take a look?" It was already expected.
Sound like a man that's been through freewholesaling.com.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. And so you did the walkthrough. How did that go? Was the assignment smooth? How did that whole process go through with you?
Yeah. For the second one, the
Uh,
multifamily.
First one.
First one. Okay. First one. Yeah, it was smooth. Well, somewhat smooth. I brought two people through, two different cash buyers.
Got it.
First one didn't really like the price, that they were. It was a little bit too much negotiating with the price. They didn't really want to pay what I was looking for, but then
Mm.
found through the same realtor found a second cash buyer that was willing to pay something that worked for me.
Okay.
And yeah, it was smooth. Sent them over the assignment of contract on that first one, and they signed it. Picked up the deposit from them the next day. Brought it to my closing attorney, and that was that was it.
Okay. So you
Oh,
got 25 grand that one. How
yeah.
much did the realtor get paid on that one?
The realtor. So this is it's kind of funny. On the first one, the second one he didn't make as much. I don't believe. So the first one, I didn't, and this could actually maybe be a good learning lesson to maybe try to build a cash buyer list at least a little bit before you get your first deal. So you're not scrambling like I was. But yeah, he made like an extra 25. So he actually double closed. So I had assigned it to him. He double closed it to his cash buyer, and made another 25. So there was actually
Woo!
50,000 of profit in that. And I mean, I'm not mad. I'm very happy I got the deal. But and he let me know. He did tell me, "Hey, I'm making money on this. I'm gonna double close it." I didn't really understand at the time what that, you know.
Well, I mean, heck, dude, that kind of led to you making a good amount of money your second deal. Now, yeah, I get that all the time. Of course, there is going to be a part of you in your heart. And even me, after doing millions and millions and millions of dollars, even to this day, when I do a JV deal and like someone JVs the JV deal and they make like 30 grand and I only made like 20, a part of me is kind of like, yeah. But overall, it's a relationship. It's fine. It still led to other deals with Doug. So this next deal, close to about 50 grand, pretty much close to you on that check. What happened with that one? Tell me about that one. That's a big one.
Yeah, thanks. So that was a three family in my area, and I actually got that from a friend. So one of my close friends, he works as a plumber, and he actually worked on the house.
Huh.
And he capped the water lines going up to the top two floors, and was on the second floor and was like, "Dude, this place is a dump." He's like, "You can probably get a deal out of this." The guy was actually talking to him about how he wanted to get rid of it, the house. So he gave me the address. I skip traced it. Um, found the guy's number, called him. Just normal cold call like I would with anything else. Didn't tell him that I got his name from the plumber that worked on his house, but
Yeah.
um, just said, "Hey, you interested in selling your house?" He said, "Yeah, I am." Set an appointment up with him. Walked through that house. It was a dump. I mean, the first floor was nice. The first, it was outdated,
Yeah.
but it was nice. But the second floor had been vacant for 9 years, and the
Oh,
third floor was vacant for 35 years, which is insane.
jeez.
Yeah, it was rough. But walked through that, and that one took a little bit more time to negotiate. So I
Mm.
called him back. He wanted around 340, 350. I tried knocking him down. We kind of went back and forth over the course of about a week, and we finally settled at 300, which, yeah, and ended up selling it for 350.
Okay. To the Doug guy, did he double close that? How did that go?
Yeah, no, he just assigned that. So he assigned that to his cash buyer. So I actually saw what he was making.
How much did you make on that one?
So he made, I think it was like 15, which, hey, again, whatever. I to me, the way I look at it, I'd worked with him before.
Yeah.
I knew that he gets it done. He really handles a lot of the cash buyer end for me anyway. All I do is talk to him, and he does the follow up with the cash buyer. He's kind of like a dispositions guy in a way.
Yeah.
Uh, And yeah, and on this one, just because the way the seller was, and the seller actually put in the contract that I couldn't assign the deal I had, so left me with no choice but to double close it.
Yeah.
Essentially. So I knew they were kind of like, I didn't want to bring too many people through and scare them out of the deal. So I just went with that one.
I mean, I see no problem in that, right? Because like you're starting out on your journey, obviously. You are going to hit a very, very great future if you keep what you're doing now, obviously. But like in the beginning, if you didn't get those two deals, it'd be a little tougher spot right now for you, right? But you're in a really good advantage and spot right now because you had somebody that made a ton of money off of you.
Mhm.
But it's a great learning lesson. And until you build that cash buyers database, I mean, heck, dude, you started 3-4 months ago, dude. Like, we're not going to go cry about it, but like, dude, in like a year or two, your growth is going to be insane and you won't need Doug anymore, but you're probably going to use Doug for tough deals, but it's a great learning curve, right? Some people pay $15,000 to a coach to learn wholesaling. You just paid it to a guy that helped you dispose some deals. And heck, that's what I do instead. But I can tell you, don't ever get greedy or jealous that somebody does that. Be happy because you're only going. I think you're only going to pay Doug, 3 or 4 more deals, and you start doing it yourself. And it's a very expensive lesson. And so I think it's going to motivate you to build more cash buyers. But
Mhm.
how did that feel after that first check and then that second check for you?
Oh, that was probably one of the best days of my life. Closing day of the first deal. Because then it was real, like having that check in my hand. I talked about doing wholesaling for the last 2-3 years, and it was just it was surreal just to have the actual check, and didn't it was one of those things where it doesn't even like kind of hit you. You know what I mean? At first.
Yeah, I
um,
know.
but it was crazy. I mean, that day was, yeah, it was definitely one of the best days of my life. And then the second one was still felt great, but nothing will even though, and it was double the check. The check was literally like double the amount. But that first one, nothing will beat that feeling.
Dude, it's an insane one. And what you did is you just went to freelson.com and you did the most important part, right? You can hear me talk all day. You can hear my stupid voice speak all day and scream all day and do my streams and stuff. But like it ain't going to work unless you actually put in the work. And I think that's what you do. And so are you still cold calling vacants? Like what's kind of your marketing looking forward to right now?
Yeah. So I'm still cold calling vacants. I call those myself. I've been doing a lot of driving for dollars recently. So I've been building up a list of driving for dollars, and right now I'm actually just building the list. I plan to
Hmm.
get to like 200 to 300, and then just call through them. Um, but I'm doing that right now, and then I actually hired a cold caller in Mexico through Upwork. So I've been paying him to cold call tax delinquency lists and absentee owner tired landlord lists, and just sets up the leads for me, and I call the interested sellers and try to set appointments up with them.
Beautiful, man. I mean, you sound like you've listened to me a lot, because, what I always say is like, hey, if this is working, keep doing it. And heck, cold calling works, keep it up. So, Michael, you're only 3 months in. So, like, we're starting very early on the journey here. But I truly believe if you keep this up, you have a huge, like, massively bright future. But as you know, it's consistent action and consistent work, and you'll get it, man. 50 grand is going to be a tiny deal for you in the future, hopefully. So,
Thank you.
um, I'm excited. I think you have a really inspirational story. I think there's so many young people out here that actually put in the work and they get the results and they don't make the excuses. And so I really appreciate you hopping on. Before we hop off here, what's some of the biggest issues or obstacles you faced? Maybe, you watch videos, you watch it, but like it's not really talked about that you had to overcome kind of by yourself. And
Mhm.
you can kind of go back and tell yourself to save some issues.
Yeah, the first actually on both deals, both the sellers wanted pretty for the average, I guess, new wholesaler, probably a pretty decent sized EMD
Yeah.
deposit. So first guy wanted like, I think it was like 5 grand, which I was didn't ha- had not done a deal yet. I mean, five, that was not. I almost thought the deal was done when he said that. Um, but I found a way around it. I negotiated with him to put into the contract that that would be due at the end of the inspection period, so that way I could have my cash buyer put that down.
How did you
Uh,
explain that to the seller?
So I just said, hey, look, before we put the deposit down, I usually typically, I made it seem like that's what I always do. So I said, the way we do it is we put that down at the end of the period,
Hmm.
at the end of the inspection period, and just kind of had the tonality of like, it is what it is. Like, that's what we do. And I think just by having that confidence, or that fake confidence, he, he just went along with it and was like, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, I just told me, yeah, we'll put it down at the end of the inspection period. He gave me a little bit of pushback, but not too much. He kind of just accepted it because I kind of just, the way I said it was that is how it is. I mean, we're buying your house. Second one wanted 7,500 or wanted 10 grand. I negotiated him down to 7,500 and actually ended up putting that money down. I got it back, but yeah, that was on that second deal. But the first deal, knowing, because that scared me. Him saying that he wanted the 5 grand, but I figured it out. And now in the future, if that happens again, if it's an amount I don't want to put down, like, I know to use that.
Beautiful, man. Well, Michael, you're doing really well. I get you back to work, right? Keep doing the consistent action, but I think it's really awesome, man. And whenever somebody tells me that they can't wholesale in Rhode Island, I'm just going to send them this podcast. So I'm excited. So Michael, thank you so much for hopping on. I can't wait to see your journey in the future, and appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zach.